When a kind-hearted little girl saved a bullied boy tied to a tree, she never imagined that years later, he would return, not just as a billionaire, but to ask for her hand in marriage. Their story proves that even the smallest acts of kindness can change destinies forever. In a small African village wrapped in the warm embrace of golden sunlight and endless green fields, life moved slowly, dictated by the rhythm of nature. Among its humble residents lived a boy named Kofi. Bright-eyed and full of dreams too big for his surroundings, Kofi often found himself a target of ridicule by boys older and crueler. His quiet demeanor and longing for something more set him apart, and some resented it. One fateful afternoon, as cicadas buzzed and the sun hung low, Kofi found himself cornered by a group of bullies. Without mercy, they pushed him to the ground, tied his arms and chest to a tree, and laughed as they walked away, leaving him bruised and humiliated. Kofi struggled against the thick, rough rope, the bark of the tree scraping his back. His white shirt was torn, stained with blood and dust. Tears welled in his eyes, not from the physical pain, but from the crushing hopelessness. Then, like a whisper from the wind, she appeared. Amara. She was younger than him, perhaps by a year, with skin kissed by the sun and small, determined hands. Her braids bounced slightly as she ran toward him, a look of fierce determination in her big brown eyes. "Stay still," she whispered, her small fingers working swiftly on the tight knots. Kofi watched her stunned. No one had ever helped him before, especially not someone so small, so fearless. Within minutes the rope fell away. Kofi crumpled into her arms, overwhelmed. "You're safe now," Amara said with a soft smile, brushing the dirt from his cheeks. From that day forward, they became inseparable. They played together, studied under the shade of the baobab tree, and whispered their dreams into the cool evening air. Amara taught him that kindness was not weakness, it was the greatest strength. Though they were just children, a bond formed, stronger than the bullies, stronger than the hardships of village life. It was the beginning of a promise that destiny itself would not dare to break. Seasons changed, and the little village thrived in its own quiet way. Children who once chased chickens through dusty streets began to grow into young men and women with responsibilities. For Kofi, life had bigger plans. His parents, who had always believed in the power of education, decided to send him to the city for school, a decision that filled Kofi with excitement and dread. On the day of his departure, the entire village gathered to see him off. At the edge of the crowd stood Amara, holding a small woven bracelet she had made herself. Her eyes shone with pride, but her smile wavered with sadness. "This will keep you safe," she whispered, tying the bracelet around his wrist. Her fingers lingered a moment longer than necessary. Kofi swallowed the lump in his throat. "I'll come back," he promised. "I swear, Amara. One day when I'm strong enough to change our lives." She nodded, but deep down, both felt the weight of uncertainty. Life had a way of pulling even the strongest bonds apart. The city was nothing like the village. Skyscrapers stabbed the sky, and streets buzzed with endless noise and color. Kofi struggled at first, overwhelmed by the sheer size of it all, but he remembered Amara's eyes, the strength she had given him, and pressed on. He excelled in school, earning scholarships and winning competitions. People began to notice the boy with the unwavering spirit and brilliant mind. By his early 20s, Kofi had started his own tech company, creating affordable energy solutions for rural areas like his village. Meanwhile, Amara stayed behind. She became a teacher under the same baobab tree where she had once saved Kofi. She taught the village children how to read, how to dream, and how to hope for a better tomorrow. Though many young women left for the cities in search of modern life, Amara stayed. She believed in her roots, and in the promise she had heard whispered long ago. Years passed, letters became fewer, and phone calls grew rarer as Kofi's life became consumed by business meetings, conferences, and endless responsibilities. Yet, no matter how distant he became, every night before he fell asleep, he thought of her, the girl who had saved him. Each success, each award he earned, felt incomplete without her by his side. Amara, too, felt his absence like an ache she could not soothe. She would sit under the baobab tree in the evenings, watching the sunset and wondering if Kofi still remembered the boy she had untied and freed so many years ago. Both hearts beat to the same rhythm, unaware that fate was already weaving the next chapter of their story, a reunion neither time nor distance could prevent. The sun was just beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, when the villagers first noticed the unfamiliar black car approaching. Its polished surface gleamed against the dusty road, and murmurs of curiosity rippled through the crowd. No one ever visited their remote village in such style. Amara stood by the well, drawing water for the evening. She shielded her eyes against the sinking sun and watched as the car rolled to a stop near the old community center. Out stepped a man in a perfectly tailored suit, his presence commanding yet familiar. He was tall, with broad shoulders, and though he wore expensive clothes, his eyes held the softness of someone who had never forgotten where he came from. It was Kofi. The village erupted into excitement. Children ran to greet him. Elders nodded in approval, and women whispered to each other, remembering the boy who had left with nothing but dreams and a promise. But Kofi only saw one face among the sea of welcoming smiles: Amara. She had grown into a stunning woman, her natural beauty radiant and unforced. The girl who had once freed him from ropes had become a symbol of strength and grace. Her eyes widened in shock before softening into a tearful smile. Without a second's hesitation, Kofi crossed the distance between them. "You came back," she whispered, voice trembling. "I never truly left," Kofi said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out the frayed, woven bracelet she had given him all those years ago. He wore it now around his wrist, faded but whole. Tears welled up in Amara's eyes. She laughed through them, wiping her cheeks with the back of her hand. Over the next few days, Kofi did more than just visit. He transformed the village. He funded the building of new schools, hospitals, clean water projects, and small businesses. Every decision he made was rooted in his memories of the community that had shaped him, and the girl who had believed in him when no one else had. The once sleepy village buzzed with new life, its people thriving, their future suddenly filled with endless possibilities. But amid all the celebrations, Kofi had a personal mission still unfulfilled. He took Amara for a walk one evening, under the same ancient baobab tree, where their story had first begun. Stars twinkled overhead, and the scent of wildflowers filled the air. "I owe you everything," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You saved me, not just that day but every day after." Amara smiled, her hand finding his. "You became the man you were always meant to be, Kofi," she said. He got down on one knee, producing a small velvet box. Inside, a simple but elegant ring caught the starlight. "Marry me, Amara. Be the queen to this life you've helped me build." Amara gasped, covering her mouth with her hands, tears streaming freely now. "Yes," she cried, laughter and sobs mingling in the air. The villagers cheered from a distance, having witnessed a love story written by fate itself. The entire village came alive with preparations. News of Kofi and Amara's engagement spread like wildfire, and soon neighboring villages sent their blessings too. Everyone wanted to be part of the fairy tale union between the village's most beloved daughter and the boy who had returned a king. Colorful fabrics draped every tree, drumbeats filled the air, and the scent of roasting meats and baking bread wafted down every path. It was decided the wedding would take place under the grand baobab tree, the place where it had all started. On the morning of the wedding, the village sparkled like never before. Women wore dresses of bright kente cloth, men donned traditional tunics embroidered with gold, and children giggled and danced barefoot across the fields. Amara stood in a small hut with her closest friends, wrapped in a gown that shimmered like the stars, stitched lovingly by the village seamstresses. Her hair was woven into intricate braids, adorned with small white flowers. She looked into the mirror, hardly recognizing the woman staring back. A knock sounded at the door. Her father entered, tears brimming in his proud eyes. "You have always been our light, Amara," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Today you become the light for another." Meanwhile, Kofi stood beneath the baobab tree, heart pounding. He wore a richly embroidered Abata robe, the bracelet Amara had given him still tied firmly around his wrist. Though he had closed million-dollar deals and spoken in front of world leaders, this moment, waiting for Amara, made him more nervous than anything else. The drums changed rhythm, and a hush fell over the crowd. Amara appeared, walking toward him slowly, the afternoon sun casting a golden halo around her. Kofi's breath caught in his throat. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. When Amara reached him, he gently took her hands in his. An elder stepped forward to perform the ceremony, speaking blessings in the ancient language of their people, words of unity, strength, and enduring love. Kofi and Amara pledged their hearts to each other, not just in the eyes of their village, but in the soul of the earth that had witnessed their journey from the beginning. When the elder pronounced them husband and wife, the villagers erupted in joyous cheers. Drums pounded louder, dancers whirled, and fireworks exploded against the evening sky. Kofi swept Amara into his arms, spinning her around as laughter rang out around them. That night, the celebration continued with feasting, singing, and storytelling under the stars. Elders shared tales of the past, while children wide-eyed listened to the story of the little girl who saved the boy tied to a tree, and how that boy had returned to change their lives forever. Amara and Kofi sat side by side, hands entwined, watching the village rejoice. They knew their story was more than just a love story. It was a testament to kindness, hope, and destiny fulfilled. Tomorrow would bring new dreams, but tonight they simply belonged to each other. Months after the wedding, Kofi and Amara's lives blossomed like the fields surrounding their village. Their love was a bond stronger than anything fate could test. Together they built a future that honored their past and opened new paths for generations to come. Kofi didn't just bring wealth to the village. He brought vision. Schools flourished with smiling children eager to learn. The hospital they built saved countless lives. Clean water flowed freely, farms thrived, and small businesses sprouted like wildflowers across the land. Amara became the heart of it all. She led women's cooperatives, organized healthcare workshops, and founded literacy programs. Villagers from distant regions came seeking her advice, her warmth, her strength. Wherever she walked, hope followed. Their home was modest despite Kofi's fortune. A beautiful villa nestled at the edge of the village, surrounded by wild acacia trees and fields of sunflowers. Every morning, Kofi and Amara would sit together, sipping fresh coffee, listening to the chorus of birds, their hands always reaching for each other's, never forgetting the rope that had once bound him to a tree, and the gentle hands that had set him free. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of crimson and gold, Kofi stood with Amara atop a hill overlooking their village. "Do you ever think about that day?" he asked softly. Amara smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "Every day," she replied, "but not because of what happened, because of what it led to." Kofi turned toward her, brushing a loose braid from her face. "You saved my life, Amara, and every moment since then has been for you." Amara laughed lightly. "You became who you were always meant to be. I just untied you." They watched as children raced through the fields, laughter ringing through the air, their future brighter than any they had known before. Elders sat outside their homes, telling stories to the next generation. Stories of hardship, of kindness, and of miracles. Stories of a boy and a girl. Stories of a rope and a tree. Stories of destiny. As the stars blanketed the night sky, Kofi and Amara returned home hand in hand. Inside, framed on the wall, hung an old photograph. Two children under a tree, a rope loosened, and a new life just beginning. Beneath it, a simple plaque read, "In the end, love unties all things." Their story was no longer just theirs. It was woven into the soul of their land, whispered by the wind, carried by the rivers, and etched forever in the hearts of their people. And so, under the same stars that had once watched over two frightened children, Kofi and Amara lived a life full of dreams realized, love fulfilled, and a legacy of kindness that would never be forgotten.